Look out for that. It's actually funny, like, you were like, what? You don't know the word, which one was it?
There was a bunch.
Yeah. No, but there was one particular one. New shoe.
Kakageru?
I know that word now, but yeah, new shoe.
Wait, which word? Oh yeah. Can't
So it's funny. So as soon as you said that, I was looking for it everywhere, and it took me like 3.5 weeks for it to come up once.
Man, I guess I didn't realize it was that rare. I mean, I also admit my perception of how common or rare words are is probably pretty warped.
But like, yeah, as soon as you acquired a word, it feels like, but how would you not know that?
Yeah.
It feels obvious to you.
Yeah. I mean, if you watch the news and stuff, it feels like it would come up pretty often.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
But it's not like the kind of thing you see in like spoken kind of stuff or like, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it's used ironically though. Like, sometimes really like katai formal words are used in casual language to be ironic.
Yeah.
Where it's like kind of like someone would say "getto da ze," someone would be like "nyushu shita ze" or something. It's like kind of funny. But
so yeah, something else I was wanting to ask is like, where was the turning point for you where anime and stuff started to become like perceived more as cringy? Because obviously it doesn't just happen overnight.
Let me think. Haven't really thought about that. That's a good question.
Like, what was the first show you watched where you're just like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Why am I watching this shit? Or if there's just anything that like stands out for your perception to change.
That's a good question. I'd have to like go back and like find out what I was watching. I mean, it was probably around the time where I made that 3-hour video. But
so it wasn't even that long ago. It was like,
well, that was almost like 3 years ago. But
is the 3-hour video 3 years old?
Oh, it was like 2017, I think.
Okay. Yeah, whoa, it's weird. 2019 is ending. Could be.
But it was probably like 2.5 years, maybe. I don't remember what month I made it in. And also what I realized is that I was trying to convince myself that I liked anime for a lot longer than I actually did. Like, there are a lot of shows that I watched and just didn't click with me at all, but other people liked them so much, so I just assumed that it must have been really good and I must have just missed something.
Yeah.
And actually, there's this one YouTuber named Digibro who makes
I don't watch him, but I have a friend who really likes his content.
Yeah,
he always links it to me and I never watch it.
I mean, yeah, don't watch it if you're learning Japanese. That was one of the only things that broke my immersion for, because he would make these analytical videos about anime in English, and it would be really insightful to me because I didn't really have a critical eye before that when I would watch media. And so he pointed out all these things that I didn't realize, and I was like, oh yeah, you're right. It has all these plot holes, and oh wow, or it was really well constructed in that way, or whatever. And so I really liked that. But actually, just a few weeks ago, he released this pretty long video. I think it was like 40 minutes long, where he's talking about how he made this scale to judge how autistic people are based off what anime they like. And the scale goes from like 0 to 8, I think. And if you're 0, you're like not autistic at all. And if you're 1, you like super mainstream stuff like One Punch Man and Naruto or whatever. And he explains what exactly autism is in his perspective, and why certain shows appeal to people at certain levels of autism. And he's not being derogatory at all. He puts himself as like 3 on his scale and then like explains that he's like, you pretty much have to be at least a little bit autistic to even like anime in the first place. And he has his own interpretation of the word that's like definitely different than
the medical,
like the technical medical definition or whatever. But and he's definitely not using derogatory. He kind of thinks it's like a positive thing. It's like a trade-off. It's like you lack in certain qualities that a lot of people in the general population have, and instead you have these other qualities, and it's just a way of being, it's not necessarily good or bad. And so he was like, yeah, to like anime in the first place, you kind of have to be a little bit autistic, just because the characters in anime almost are never like real life people, right? They're just these exaggerations and characterizations of how human beings actually are. And so you have to be a certain way for that to really appeal to you. And so watching that, I was like, yeah, I definitely have at least a little autism, but less than a lot of anime fans, at least on this scale, right?
Yeah, definitely. Because it's like
And
when
actually,
when you're in like the same like sorry for interrupting. When you have people who literally are buying body pillows and stuff like that, because it's like, yeah, I like anime, I like watching it, but as soon as I'm done with a show that's interesting, I just kind of like move on with my life and find the next thing. And it's like a lot of people just like, they put it up on a pedestal within their subconscious, I guess, and like that's definitely not how to be a healthy adult. Anyway, continue.
yeah, yeah, but I mean, he was talked about how one of the qualities of being like an otaku that actually came from this one Japanese like intellectual who wrote on the topic, and I'd actually heard of this book in Japanese before, but I never read it. I don't remember what it's called, but he was talking about how otaku like to like create databases of things and like organize things or like make spreadsheets about things, and that's one of the qualities of
a phase of like just collecting media, and that's almost like more fun than actually consuming it. Because like before I actually started with MIA, like maybe back like when I just came back from Japan in 2015, so I sucked like really bad at the time, but I was like not reading any Japanese at all, but I was downloading like all of these untranslated visual novels and stuff, because I was like, yeah, well, when I'm fluent, I'll check them all out, obviously, because I was delusional. But like almost like collecting it for me was more fun, and it's like I've grown up from that. But yeah, you definitely need it.
Actually, yeah, now that you point that out, I think that's kind of like a little bit of an autistic thing.
Yeah,
probably. And I definitely have that too, because like
with audiobooks, I think you did the same thing, right? Because you were like, yeah, I'll get all of the audiobooks from Audible that I'll ever want for my entire life.
No, that was a perfectly like normal, reasonable thing, because that was just like, I want to save money more than anything else.
Yeah.
But I definitely, with anime, I had a hard drive, and I would try to get as high quality versions of any anime that would be at least remotely good. And I would just basically, I'd make sure they all had the right titles, like they'd all be named correctly, all the files. And if there was one that had soft subs, I'd like want to remove the soft subs because I didn't like them. And even though you could just turn them off, and like all this stupid stuff now that I think about it. But even going back to my past, like when I was into pen spinning, I would collect modded pens, and I'd want to have like every popular pen, and I would go out of my way to get tons of pens, and I had like 100 different pens. And there was a phase while I was age editing where I got into collecting Game Boys, and I had like a bunch of different Game Boys and like modded Game Boys.
I really want a Game Boy, but that's also because for like music you can do really cool. But I mean, you can just do it digitally. Yeah. So I don't know why you need the hardware, but dude, it would be so cool to have the hardware.
Aesthetic, probably.
Yeah.
But well, that initially what got me into it was like the chiptune stuff. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, it is. Cool.
I got I got this Game Boy Color cartridge, or not Game Boy Color's original Game Boy cartridge.
Yeah, DMG.
That allowed you
chip. What is it called? Like LSD or something. It sounds like a drug.
LSD chip. Yeah. But I mean, the cartridge, it was just like one of those things where you can plug it into the computer and just put ROMs on it. You could put any Game Boy ROM on it and then play that ROM on a physical Game Boy.
All right.
But the main thing that people used it for was for putting on this program called LSDJ, I think, which was this program that someone made for Game Boy that lets you make chiptune music on a Game Boy. And it looked so simple. I was like, oh, that's cool. I'll just learn how to make music. And then I realized that I didn't know anything about making music, and so it was going to be impossible without actually learning music theory and stuff.
You don't need music
I still
theory.
Just liked the.
If you ever want to talk about that, that's definitely something that I'm very knowledgeable about in terms of just like the applicable like practical stuff without having to just learn random theory. Because I think a lot of people, they learn music in the same way that language learners are just like, I have to learn all these grammar patterns and stuff, and it's like you're so like lacking of perspective because you're not doing it for anything. Because like at least when you're getting input, right, you're learning a word so that you can understand a sentence that you saw, and you know that you need this word because it was preventing you from doing something that you wanted to do. And I think like with any like skill building that you're serious about, like that's really important, is having like a kind of perspective of how stuff is actually used. Because then it's not pointless, right? Because I go to class and see these people who are like, oh, why do I have to learn these scales? They're so boring. I'm never going to actually use it. I'm just learning it to pass a test. And it's like, as soon as you're in that mindset, like you've lost the game. I just lost the game. Fuck.
Yeah. I mean, that makes perfect sense. I mean, I'm not really that interested in music in particular anymore, but yeah, that does make perfect sense. I agree with that.
There's also like a program for PC called Family Tracker, which is like probably a little bit more user-friendly than LSDJ, if anybody's interested in chiptune music who's listening to this.
Yeah, I mean, I just think there was an illusion that because it was on a Game Boy and Game Boys are simple, and the program itself was simple, that making music on it would be simple.
Yeah, it's really.
It's still making music. It's not simple.
I mean, it's simple in the same way that learning a language is simple. That you just got to get lots of input and kind of learning a language is like actually pretty simple. It's just there's a lot, and there's a lot more than you
but
could
I meant
possibly
simple in the
know.
sense that you can't just download it, know nothing, and then within a week make a really good song.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that. Definitely not. Let's see what other cool.
Oh, wait,
topics.
anyway, I'm not sure we finished the topic of the anime thing.
Anime, yeah.
So anyway, what I was talking about with that Digibro video is he explained why people like certain anime that literally boggled my mind. Like he explained why people like anime where it's just cute girls doing nothing for the whole show. Like for me, that literally I could not comprehend that. I was like, this is the most boring thing ever. How could someone possibly like this? And then he kind of explained it. Go watch the video if you're interested. I don't even remember it that clearly. I don't think I could do it justice. But he also explained why people like Kankore and these other crazy shows where they just introduce like a million characters right in the beginning. And it's just this kind of like a clusterfuck that's hard to keep track of. There's people who actually, that aspect of it appeals to them because they like having a lot to keep track of. They like things that they can make a database of and make spreadsheets for and keep a wiki of. That aspect of it actually appeals to them. And so, like, for example, Railgun and the whole
Railgun's
what's the name
cool.
of the overarching series of that?
Magical Index.
Yeah, like that show. He was talking about how that's like on his scale like level 4 autism or whatever because there's like a million things to keep track of and all this stuff. And also like why visual novels appeal to people or how it doesn't bother them that the game itself, like the construction of the video game is really low and the art quality is low and the music is kind of like low quality, but they like how you can just go through a million different routes and see all the different possibilities and explore this one fictional world super in depth and how that really appeals to them. Where for me, finishing one route on any visual novel was so boring because it's like it would just drag on and have all these little details that were really insignificant for the big plot. And it was just like, crap, where is this going? Like, why am I just living this guy's life instead of living my life? Like, what's the point of this? And so it would be super boring. And then I was like, is there something wrong with me? Clearly there's something here because everyone else loves it. And so anyway, what I was going to say is that there was like a while where I was trying to get myself to like anime because I had this idea that it was good and I identified with the aesthetic of being an otaku, even though in reality I wasn't enjoying it and didn't even like it. So I think there was an aspect of as soon as I realized that is what I was doing, I was like, wait, most of this crap sucks. Why am I liking this? And it wasn't that I started. It was just like I became honest of how I was feeling the whole time, but I was in that denial about it before. I think.
But I almost feel like to a certain extent that what your current view of it is almost like your reaction to that, almost like how with your 3-hour video, how you're just like, yeah, well, I hate Japan and everything like that because it was a reaction, from the fact that you were lying to yourself about it. I'll get the impression that it's the same thing with anime. It's like, oh, it's all shit or whatever because you almost just like bitter at the fact that you were lying to yourself about it, I guess. And it's like, I can definitely understand that.
For a while, that was part of it. I mean, now I think I'm mostly over that. And like, I just finished watching Dr. Stone yesterday or 2 days ago, and I watched the whole thing because I enjoyed it. Like, I kept up every week, and I thought it was pretty good. But I still have a lot of complaints about it. Just how the internal laws of the anime world don't conform to the laws of our world, and so it's this constant suspending disbelief.
It's like, in there, it's like, wait, how come when somebody is a stone thing and they die, or like the statue gets broken, it's stone on the inside, but yet before it's been broken, like if you just pour stuff so it dissolves, then there's like, living flesh underneath. Like that makes absolutely no sense, but you just got to go with it,
Yeah, but I mean, even beyond that stuff, the thing that bothers me the most is just the people and the characters and how they're like simplifications of how people are in real life.
Yeah.
How like, oh, I'm so evil, but now I had one powerful experience with you, so now I'm a good guy, and like all these stuff like that. Where that's not how real people are. Real people are way more nuanced and complicated than that. And so having these simplifications of the characters, because really, when you're watching most shows, it's interesting and you enjoy it because you get invested in the characters, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it's hard to get invested in most anime characters because they're a simplified version of a real person. And of course, that happens in other media as well, like lots of corny media, especially like Japanese movies and dramas. The same exact thing is going on, which makes it really hard for me to get into them. But I think that's my main gripe with anime is that all the characters are like simplified and dumbed down. Whereas, like the other day, I randomly watched an episode of Evangelion. I have to watch Evangelion all the way through soon. I haven't seen it for years, but
I watched the first 4 episodes.
Yeah, I watched this one random episode later, like episode 14 or something, and it was clear that like, whoa, these are like real human beings. They're completely nuanced, complicated people with their own problems and you know, issues and strengths and weaknesses, and it was really compelling and really powerful. So clearly, it's not inherent to the medium of animation. Yeah. It just has to do with the culture and the people who are into it.
Well, to me, I feel like dramas and stuff, and like for me, watching dramas right now is actually pretty nice because I haven't done very much of it. So there's that element of wow, I suck at English at the moment. I can't think of the word that I need to say in this specific situation in English. What is it when something is rare and that makes it special and meaningful?
Precious?
I mean, that's not what I was thinking of, but let's just go with that. Oh fuck. Now it's completely ruined my flow of what I was trying to say. But yeah, like watching drama was very difficult for me at first because I feel like because anime is animated, it makes it so much easier to suspend your disbelief because you're just like, well, if they're unrealistic, then that's fine because I wasn't expecting them to be realistic in the first place. Whereas when it's real people, I think it's because like when I was a kid, I was watching a lot of stuff like 2.5 Men or whatever. So that like really left a really negative taste in my mouth about like what it means for like I guess like that kind of acting where it's just like 2D people. But then when it's actual people, it's like so much harder for me to swallow, I guess. I don't know if you can relate to that. But
yeah, no, I can see that. Like I definitely think when on certain animes that are done well, the fact that it's animated and that there's voice actors doing these exaggerated voices does actually make it easier to suspend disbelief because all aspects of what you're seeing kind of blend towards that. Yeah. And there are certain animes that I like for example, like Furikuri or whatever, FLCL or whatever you want to call it. Like I haven't seen that in a while, so I'd have to watch it again to have an updated opinion. But I think again that show they're really using the medium to their advantage to do something that you could only do with animation. And there's a real depth to the characters, even though in certain ways they're also very exaggerated, and it's like done really well.
So wait, so there's 2 things. I mean, sorry, if you want to finish.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so 2 things that I want to bring up because I've almost brought them up and then I've almost forgotten them a couple times. So which visual novels did you end up playing, and what was your impression of them? Why did they suck? Why were they good? Whatever.
I've played a lot of the key visual novels. Like I played Clannad. I think I finished like 2.
Yeah, I played that game in English, and wow, it was so boring.
I finished 2 of the shorter routes, or maybe even 3, and then I started like a bunch more and never finished. I played Little Busters. Like I tried to play it twice and never finished a route. It just went on so long. And I'd enjoy it in moments. I just get bored eventually.
Yeah.
Like I'd enjoy the atmosphere of the world, but then it would just be like, okay, well, I've had enough of this atmosphere and nothing is happening.
Give me a sec.
Let's see. I played. What's that?
In my room. Sorry, my mother just came into my room.
I see. And let's see. I also played Steins Gate. I tried to play Steins Gate a bunch of times. I got pretty far, but eventually still got bored because it was just like so long that I eventually was just like, I need to do something else, and then I never came back to it. I also played this other visual novel by the same people as Steins Gate, like part of the same meta series. Yeah, Chaos Head. I played Chaos Head. Tried to play that a bunch of times. Never got that far in it. Mostly when I tried to play it, that was when I still sucked though, so it was like hard to follow. It was like kind of above my level while I was initially trying to play it. Then let's see. I tried to play Fate State Night like a couple times, and one time I got really far, but then again it was just like I eventually got bored because it was so long and also kind of like corny in a lot of ways. and it wasn't really believable for me. Let's see. Those are all the ones coming to mind. I tried to play Subarashiki Hibi for like a little bit, but that was after I already kind of wasn't that into Japanese anymore, so it definitely didn't hold my attention. But
Right. I mean, it's kind of funny because I actually ended up playing a lot of these games when I was in high school, so I played them in English and 100% of them. Like, I 100%ed Fate's Day Night, and I also I like 97% completed like the sequel to it. And then my laptop died and I lost my save data. But I think it's interesting, like, for me, like, this was the kind of stuff I was doing in my free time in English anyway. So for me, like, start doing it in Japanese wasn't really that big a transition. Whereas I guess, like, for you, it's like, because you were doing Japanese, you were kind of thinking, oh, well, I have to check out visual novels because everybody else who's into this kind of stuff, like, needs to, everyone else is doing it. So I kind of have to see what all the hype is about.
Yeah, and I'm definitely not the target audience. Like, yeah. I would never do that in English. I don't think, I wouldn't. Like, the only reason I got as far as I did was because it was at least Japanese practice, so it felt productive in a way.
Yeah.
But
I mean, like, I wouldn't do that in English anymore either, because it's like, when you're a high schooler, I mean, like, your set of values, like, what you want to do with your time is different anyway. But there's some things that are nice about, like, the medium of a visual novel, just, like, the fact that there's not really a time constraint and that it doesn't make things feel rushed. But then it's like, that comes with the downside of it can get really boring and go on and on. I think, like, the hardest thing is just getting yourself to start. And when you're actually, like, in the flow and you're playing it for, like, 2 hours or whatever, it's actually pretty cool, but it's hard to get.
Yeah, I mean, it got a lot nicer when I got a PS Vita and I was playing them on my PS Vita, because then I could, like, relax on the couch and play. Whereas when I was on my computer, it extra sucked because you're just, like, sitting upright in a chair clicking on a mouse.
Yeah, it kind of sucks.
And it took me a while to bite that bullet because, of course, you have the text hooker when you're on your computer, so it's easier to make Anki cards. But by the time I got the PS Vita, I was good enough where I would only occasionally
take a photo with
make cards anyway.
With your phone or whatever anyway.
Yep, exactly.
Let's see if I have any other things to talk about. Wait, so there was one other thing that I was forgetting, and I think I forgot now. Yeah, okay, I can't remember.
You didn't write it down on your pad?
No. I'm stupid. Oh yeah, okay, so one thing I've been thinking about doing recently is, because I kind of want to do music and stuff, so basically my mother was telling me, hey, you need to get a part-time job. And then I kind of worked some really boring stuff, like I worked at
By the way, do you always say my mother? Is that, like, normal where you are?
I wouldn't say it's normal, but it's like my, like, karazukuri. Like, I don't know, I don't speak like how the people around me speak.
Oh, I see. I've, like, never heard someone actually say that in real life before.
Oh.
Well, this isn't real life.
I mean, but it is how I speak in real life. But yeah, it's weird even here. Oh yeah, so I, like, had to work at, like, a doctor's office, just, like, putting labels on bottles and whatever, and it was pretty cool because I got to, like, listen to podcasts or whatever while I was doing it. But it kind of sucked, especially that, like, you work for 2 hours and get, like, $12. So then I was like, well, the cool thing about Japanese people is that they're actually willing to pay for stuff, and, like, like, they still buy CDs and stuff. And especially online, I see a lot of people who are, like, doing mixing and, like, mastering for music, and actually making money in an online community. So I thought, well, that's at least concerning stuff that I'm interested in. So then I was thinking, like, I'd have to, like, make a website and have, like, a Twitter presence in Japanese selling a product. And it's like, it's really overwhelming thinking about doing that, especially that I feel like I want to get way more comfortable, with Japanese and everything before really having to make a persona and all of that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I almost feel like you can't really keep on making excuses and putting it off either. Yeah.
I mean, kind of I don't think you can go wrong either way. From my perspective now, you're still at a point where you could easily justify putting it off more and getting better. Like, I think there is a certain point where that does just become an excuse, and realistically you're just procrastinating. But I still think that you are not at that point yet.
Yeah.
I don't think you've reached that point of diminishing returns with your ability.
Well,
So,
I haven't gotten to the point like of plateauing where I can just read a book and there's not words I don't know. So until I get there,
well, I mean, that kind of always that happens to me with English.
yeah,
There's
that's
still words
true.
I don't know, but I could still like for me, I reading a book in Japanese is little like there's literally less words I don't know than when I read a book in English.
Yeah.
But there's still some occasionally, depending on the book.
Uh,
But anyway, I mean, just talking to you, like the fact that you didn't know Newshoe, right? Like you could still do this hardcore for another year, and you'd be way better in
Yeah,
a
yeah,
year than you are
exactly.
now. So I think it's easy to justify that.
yeah, definitely. But at the same time,
But
it's
again,
like,
I also think it's fine to if you like are inspired to go and create that Twitter presence. I also think that's a fine option too. You don't have to. It's not like, oh, I'm breaking the AJAT rule. Like I'm not good enough yet. Like you don't have to think about that way either. I think either way, you can't really go wrong.
okay. I think I'm gonna kind of do a hybrid and just like dip my feet in the water and still take the thing of like outputting without making mistakes and just like, being cautious, while still, just like trying to get the best of both, trying to improve and be self-conscious and all of that kind of stuff. Because I feel like that definitely has a place. Yeah.
Cool.
So actually, okay, I remember what I wanted to say. So one thing that I do quite like about anime is that sometimes it's almost just used as a medium to point things out about society and about real people. I guess, like, again, that's not really inherent to anime, but I've been watching this show called Bunny Girl Senpai. I can't remember what the full name is, but I can't remember what it is in English or Japanese. Kind of funny, like, as soon as you can't remember the full Japanese title, you're just like, oh, that's a problem about my ability, but it's like, I can't remember it in English either. It's easy to beat yourself up, I guess. And there's a scene in that where it really like highlights the insecurities of like why Japanese people are so addicted to like their friend group and like, instant messages and like, oh, I have to stay up all night watching all the videos that my friends put on this group because of like the fear of missing out. And like in real life, I went on a date with a Japanese girl and we went to like a coffee festival, right? And there's like all of these exotic things that you could check out or whatever, but it's like, no, she wants to go to see the Starbucks stand, right? And it's like, I guess for Japanese people, like a lot of their value comes from not wanting to fight against the social norms, I guess. And it's like, because it's hayatteru, it's like important, and that's something that I also have to take, that means it's like super important for me as a person as well, because if I don't care about what's hayatteru, then that like reflects badly on me. And it's kind of nice that, I don't know, it's interesting when you have shows that focus on that kind of stuff.
I know, do a majority of shows do that? Or
Probably not.
because I'm thinking
I was
like
just thinking about it
Sword Art
today.
Online. Or like most isekai, it's mostly just like a dream fulfillment thing. It's like a fantasy fulfillment thing, right?
Yeah.
It's just some loser thinking, man, I wish the world was like this so that I could be awesome and pampered, and then just writes a story where that happens. That's what it kind of feel like.
Yeah, definitely. But I don't know. It kind of feels like a shame to just put everything in that box, because then, I don't know, like shows like Hyoka
like I said,
or Haruhi or other stuff that I'd put in the same category as. Oh.
Well, like I said, I'm not close-minded to anime. I still watch anime, and there's like I said, I want to watch Ava. I think it's good. And
Yeah,
there's
definitely.
still anime that I plan on watching. So I'm not close-minded to anime altogether. It's just like
The bigger picture, like
some people
popular
are like,
airing
I'm an
shows or
anime
whatever.
fan, right?
Yeah, that's pretty.
It's like
cringe.
part of their identity. Whereas like you wouldn't say, oh, I'm a Western drama fan just because you like
exactly.
Game of Thrones, right? Or Breaking Bad. That's just you like Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones. That's how I kind of feel about anime.
Yeah, I agree with you there. It's kind of funny, like,
And also,
yeah, go ahead.
I think that if you look at anime as a whole, there are definitely certain trends in anime that you can find within a vast majority of anime. And I can say I don't like some of those trends, and the anime that I do like are kind of exceptions, not the rule.
Yeah,
you know?
definitely.
Although, again, you can say most things suck, and anything that's good is an exception to the rule, including dramas and movies and anything, and that's fair as well. I think it just is a little different with anime because there's these group of people who have an identity around being anime fans, whereas, like, if, for example, if you took someone who was a cinema fan, right, they would probably tell you that most movies suck. Because if you're a cinema fan, you probably are super picky about what movies you like, you know?
Yeah.
And obviously most films are just mass produced for a general audience and do suck. And I almost never hear people saying that they're a drama fan. It's like, if you just watch that just means
I've
you're a
seen
normal
that.
person who like, really?
Well, at least with like Asian drama, it's kind of like
No,
becoming
I
a
mean,
bit-
like, no, yeah, I know. I just mean like Japanese people don't say that they're a drama fan of like Japanese drama, and American people don't say that they're a fan of Western drama. It's just something that you do when you're bored, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes. And so it's just this thing where, because anime has become an identity, and yeah, Asian dramas as well, it's kind of an offspring of the same bubble. Yeah, it's like becomes an identity to people. Then that, yeah, like I do have a kind of
predisposition to not want to be like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's fine now. Like, I think it's totally fine if you're like that. I don't have anything against you, but I'm just not like that. So
Yeah, and I also don't want to be like that. But it's kind of weird, like, because I like consuming the media, but I don't like all of the baggage that comes with that, because I don't associate with that culture really. Like the Western anime community is pretty crazy. So it's especially from the point of view of somebody who does know stuff about Japanese, whatever, that it's like these people are so invested in something that they don't really understand, but they're almost invested in it because they don't understand it, because it's something that's foreign and unique. And like the fact that you get people who play like text hooked visual novels going through Google Translate, and they prefer it that way because it's like, well, it gives it charm or whatever, you know? Actually,
yeah, well, I mean, I think there's a spectrum. I think there are definitely a lot of people like that, but like watching Digibro, like I think Digibro in particular understands anime way better than most actual Japanese anime fans probably. And yeah, he doesn't speak Japanese that well, but he's like watched enough anime where he can read between the lines when he reads the English subs and like piece it together with what he hears and kind of like get a gist of what's really being said. And he knows like all the different directors of anime and the lineage of different animators and studios and all this stuff. And so he is fully consuming it, and he actually likes it. And watching his videos made me realize like, oh, his brain just works differently than mine, because I'm just not fascinated by the stuff that he happens to be fascinated by just due to the way his brain is structured. And there are a lot of what I would call high quality anime fans where they do understand it and they actually like it. And I think all the power to those people. It is definitely more cringy when there's people who don't get it and think they like it because it's exotic or whatever, or because they just want an identity because they don't fit in with their own culture, which was like basically what I did for a while. So like, yeah, that's definitely cringy, but I don't think it's all like that.
Yeah, because I have this theory that the reason why so many people, you know, between the ages of like 13 and like maybe 18, they suddenly just go head over heels in anime. It's because it's like that's kind of the age where you're starting to like peak out your comprehension of your native language. In terms of like you're watching movies and you get to the point where you understand not only all of the plot, but you can be able to predict it because it's just a boring Hollywood movie or whatever. And so I think for a lot of these people, like the reason why they like seek like salvation in anime is because it's like it resets that comprehension. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's. I think that could be plausible in terms of the plots. I doubt it's for the language. I doubt people are like,
no,
I need
not
to
in terms of the
learned
language.
English.
It's just because it's something that's not a Hollywood movie, or it's not like
yeah,
the way
or it's like exactly. So I could see it being really interesting at the beginning, and maybe that's what happened to me, where you know, if all you've seen is Hollywood movies your whole life, then you kind of become fluent in those tropes. Oops, someone's calling me. One sec. Hello? Yeah, it was bullshit call. Someone trying to sell me insurance or something. But
well, I think also in terms of like in Japan, like they have Golden Week, and then the first time you watch anime and you hear about Golden Week, you're like, oh, what's that? And you have to open Wikipedia or whatever. I think like that's really appealing to a lot of people.
Yeah, and also just all the tropes. They're totally new, right? They have their own
exactly.
meta.
Yeah.
Like when you watch a bunch of Hollywood movies, it becomes predictable because you get fluent in the meta. But I think maybe that's another component of it. Is part of the reason I grew out of anime is because it became too saturated for me. I got to the point where it was just as predictable because I had already seen that stuff done too many times, so it lost that aspect of its charm.
Exactly. Yeah.
But you're right. That probably is a big reason why it initially appeals to people. It's like a whole new world.
I actually, like, before I started with MIA, I wasn't watching a lot of anime just because of that. Like, I'd maxed out my comprehension with English subs, right? And for me, it was really like a nice, like, it rekindled like why I liked it in the first place. But yeah, like I think as long as I continue to be interested in Japanese media, I kind of can't stop doing MIA because I'm kind of like torn. Like, oh, I want to consume all this media, but I'm never going to go back to ever using English subs because it's cringy and I kind of see how much I'd be missing out on. It's like you can't go back when you're like, in a certain
and
amount.
I think
So it's like there's nothing to do but just to keep on going, I guess.
Yeah, like you actually sound like you're a lot more like your brother than me. No, sorry, you sound like you're a lot more like my brother than you are like me. Because my younger brother, who's 2 years younger than me, he is an anime fan and he is like a video game fan, like a hardcore video game enthusiast, where he's very particular about his games. He plays them very critically and with a real critical eye,
He's in the Smash Brother, right? I remember.
Yeah, he also plays competitive fighting games. He plays Street Fighter. Like on Street Fighter 4, he was one of the top players in our state for a while.
That's cool.
But then Street Fighter 5 came out and he didn't like it, so he didn't play that much. But he's also pretty good at like competitive Melee. And so like he'll tell me about that. I find that whole world really fascinating. But he also
like that kind of
likes
stuff as well.
Yeah, he also just likes anime and he likes a lot of Japanese games. Like he plays a lot of Japanese games. And so he's considering maybe doing MIA, which would be kind of funny, because he's like so close to the source. He'd be like, oh, I need help with Anki. He just knocks on my door. And actually we live with my dad right now, but we're actually moving out in like 3 weeks and we're getting our own apartment together. So
that's cool.
We'll still be close. But yeah, so he doesn't speak Japanese. He knows a decent amount because he took Japanese in high school, combined with just so many hours of watching anime that he has picked up a decent amount, which is kind of funny. Like I'll test him sometimes and he'll actually like, I'll be like, hey, I'll say something, be like, you know what that meant? And he'll get it right a lot of the times.
I think yeah, that's where I was at before I found MIA is it's like, because I can't say like all of the years before MIA didn't do anything because they definitely did, but it's like it kind of added up to like 6 months if I had done it. So that's why people
probably,
are like,
probably good. So.
How long have you been studying Japanese? I'll be like, 2 years. But it's like, yeah, well, 5 years of being super like tooth or hampa and like not getting anywhere. But I'll just add that up as 6 months.
Hello?
Can you help me in the garage?
Like
5 minutes? It doesn't have to be the second.
Okay. Yeah, I can come in a little bit.
Give me like an estimate, just so I can...
like 10 minutes.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, we should finish this up anyway.
Yeah. Well, anyway, what I was going to say is, so like my brother already does stuff in Japanese pretty regularly, like more than I do probably. And so if he learned Japanese, it would just be a natural extension of what he was doing anyway. It would like you're saying, it wouldn't be about doing something in Japanese because it's in Japanese. It would be about doing what he was going to do anyway, and it happens to be in Japanese.
Yeah, that's definitely what happened with me. So
yeah, and so I can totally see that in my brother's case. And so in a way, it's like, man, I wish I could like give him my Japanese ability because he'd make better use of it than me in a way,
Yeah. But I guess like just like when you do have that, it doesn't feel special anymore. You're just like consuming stuff, but it's just infinitely better than if you were consuming it through the lens of English, because at least then you have like that comparison. Because like especially with written Japanese, I think I said it before, it's like kanji makes it's like vivid in a way that it's impossible to experience in English, because it's like you have a little picture that represents every other word that uses that kanji. It's like you have that infinite like network of connections. It's like something really special about that.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, in a way, I think that's kind of the tragedy of my situation, is that there's almost always when I'm doing something in Japanese, it's because I need to do stuff in Japanese to maintain my ability. And if my Japanese was if I could somehow lock in my Japanese in place, like make a save file, and my Japanese would never get any worse, even if I never did anything in Japanese, I'd probably pretty much not do anything in Japanese, because there's always something in English that's more interesting to me right now and where I'm at with my life. And so, I mean, it is what it is. Like, I've gotten so much out of learning Japanese that I'm totally fine with it. Like, I mean, of course, there's a lot of things that I'd go back and change, but I don't really regret it because it's given me so much in other ways.
I mean, it's giving you a career, right?
Yeah. That's like part of it. But I mean, even just with my own just personal development and on that front, it's given me so much that it feels like the actual Japanese ability itself is just a souvenir that I get to keep.
Yeah.
So
I think like
yeah,
for everybody else who's like listening to this and they're going through stuff, I think it's just important to think about like that the journey is the important thing, because at the end of the day, it's like, you know, I think like a lot of us, we see people who are like raised, who are like half or whatever, and they're native in both, and we just think, oh, it'd be so nice to have perfect pitch accent, like that would be great. But it's like to them, it doesn't mean anything. You know, it's like it's the same thing as like the fact that I'm native level in English. It's like, yeah, it's cool, but you know, it doesn't. It's not special to me, and it's not special to anybody who is like super good at Japanese. I mean, even for you, it's like you probably don't think anything of it anymore. I mean, it's, when you compare it to Chinese, I guess like that's another thing. But
yeah, I mean, it's both. It's hard to explain because in a sense, it's like, yeah, big deal. I'm used to understanding Japanese. It's not that different than English. On the other end, there's times where I'm like, whoa, it's cool. I can read this Japanese book. There are all these phrases in my head, all these unique chunks of meaning that you could never express in English, that are actually incorporated into just the way that I think and about the world and everything else.
Almost makes you feel like everybody who's only monolingual is kind of like, you know, missing out on like this whole other like part of what it means to be alive, or like just to have another frame of reference to see the world, I guess.
Yeah, a little bit. It also feels like learning Japanese has made me permanently worse at English, though.
Yeah.
So
I couldn't remember the word tour the other day. I was like, oh, there was this car who like crashed into this bridge, or this big truck, because it was like too like it was like big so that it couldn't fit. Like I just couldn't phrase that really simple concept. And
yeah, so that's there is that, but I mean, hey, you gotta win some, you lose some.
Okay, so is there any last words you want to leave people with?
Well, I guess I just say, hey, if you like anime, don't think that I'm shitting on you, because I'm not. Like, I liked anime for a long time, and I think it's totally cool to like anime. Like, if don't get the wrong idea. And yeah, good stuff. I mean, I've talked about language learning so much, I can't think of anything new to say right now, unfortunately. But
yeah, you have to come up with an original and interesting idea off the top of your head right at this very second.
Well, I'd say, hey, keep evolving. I'm always evolving. These are just everything I said today. Those are just my current thoughts. In like 6 months, I could have a totally updated view on all my ideas. So
okay, cool.
Don't be stagnant. I won't be stagnant. We can grow together. It'll be good.
Okay, sweet. Okay.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on.
Awesome. So wait, how does this work? Do I press the stop recording button and just go like, okay, thanks, cheers, and I press stop recording, and then I actually say goodbye? But now I've actually said it, so it's awkward either way. So I'm gonna press stop recording.
Probably like, that's what
3,
you should do. Yeah.
2, 1.